What up, y'all? It's your man, Abuamerican. I am here with, what you call yourself, God amongst men. As most of them I'd say, I wouldn't be lie. But Corey Capella.
Nice. That sounds even better. I love it, dude. Yeah, Corey Capella. That's me. God amongst men. It's just, some people get offended. Who cares? We're in that day and age right now, man, where it's like, who cares? You just got to be you. But the funny thing is, man, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you know much about that aspect of me, but the way and the reason why I came up with this name was I went down to Costa Rica for my second time to go and do an Iboga experience. Have you ever heard of Iboga?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a spiritual journey, right? So when I came back, I was trying to figure out what to do, and the name just kept like ringing through my head, like a God amongst men, a God amongst men, a God amongst men. And even then I was still like, no, man, like that's way too arrogant and all this other stuff. And the justification for it though is this, right? So, and it's almost where I'm going and talking about with my new book, but I don't know if you've ever read the book Homo Deus by Noah Yuval Harari. He's the one that wrote the book Sapiens.
Okay.
Have you ever read Sapiens or heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Really, really, really good books, man. Especially like if you just want to like, this guy kind of breaks things down. It's almost in a way, you know how we're always talking about in the red pill sphere about evolutionary psychology?
Yes, indeed.
So this is essentially what he's talking about in his books, right? So with Sapiens, he talks about how we've evolved as a species and what we're programmed to. So believe it or not, Sapiens is one of the best branding books out there, like for branding and marketing, because he talks about what we are hardwired to be attracted to.
Okay.
Now, in the book Homo Deus, what he's talking about now is essentially, and this is where I go with my book as well, is essentially he's talking about where is the human species going to evolve to next? What's our next leap of evolution?
Okay.
And essentially what he says, and I'm in concurrence with him, obviously, we're essentially, because, and I believe this because of what has just happened, we've had what is called the nano, right? So from 1984 to 2012, let's say, we've had a tremendous boom in the information age and just technologies, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's all this technology and information meant to do for us? Well, think about it, my man. Every single day, you are bombarded with at least 30,000 advertisements that your brain is having to filter through. That's a whole lot of information that you're having to process. Not to mention that. Exactly. Not to mention that we have this amazing thing called Google. Some may hate it, some may not. I'm still impartial. I think what they're doing as far as a company is they're doing what human beings do, and they're trying to dominate. But essentially what it comes down to is we have every bit of information ever known to humankind on this one little device right now that anyone can search through. Think of that level of information and think of it from an evolutionary standpoint. What would that do to someone's brain and consciousness, having access to all of that? Not just that, we're now working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Everyone I know is working that long in one primary job, and then they have a side hustle, and then they have a family, and then they're trying to work out, and then they're trying to grow their fucking wealth and all this other stuff, right, dude? Like, think about how hard that is on the brain. And not to mention the other thing we got to talk about, AI, video games, all this stuff that our brain is now like processing, right? Dude, our brains and our consciousness are evolving right now just based off of how much information we have to take in. And that's the new environment that we live in, is that's the level of survival that you have to keep up with.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And it makes absolute sense. I work in engineering, and the level of automation that's taking place right now, it's terrifying a lot of guys. And then to top it off, as you said, like technology is progressing just in a different note. I mean, same topic, but different note. I was like, we're looking at the automotive industry going from like, internal combustion engine, what it looks like it's pushing towards like electric cars. And I keep telling guys, it's like the jobs you're doing right now today won't exist in 10 years. Like all you forklift drivers and that guys and the guys putting a screw here and there, all that's going to disappear, and you have to be prepared for the future right now. And guys aren't capable of thinking that way. And those they're basically the dinosaurs of our species, you know.
Absolutely.
And if you can't upgrade, man, ooh.
I agree. Yeah, I see it when I drive around right now. I look at some of these people that can't even keep up with. I mean, we're moving faster and faster. It's like on the highway, you can't be merging onto traffic doing 45 miles an hour anymore. Like you can't be scared and intimidated doing that stuff anymore, right? Like you're gonna hurt people because you're not moving fast enough, and that's essentially like what you said. Like if you can't make the choice and keep up, essentially what's going to happen is you're not going to make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there was a TED Talk and there was this guy named Eddie Obeng, and he did a TED Talk, and he talked about the 12 o'clock hour. It's probably one of the most slept on TED Talks ever. I'm not really a TED Talk fan, but this guy talked about that. He's like, the time, he said that he called it 12 o'clock hour, and he said that's the time when the pace of technological advance passed everyone up. And he said, and I call it 12 o'clock hour because everybody was asleep when it happened. And he says, now the pace of increase, the pace of technological advancement is going faster and people can actually keep up and use it. And so he did it in a spectacular, it's probably the most spectacular TED Talk there ever was. And he just talked about all the benefits. He did a little drawing, and he showed lamina and turbulent in terms of liquid flow in fluid movement. And lamina is when it's like the liquid is running straight and smooth. And he says, and that's what's existed before the 12 o'clock hour. He says, and now everything's increased in pace. And he says, and this little green ink, it swirls around. That's called turbulent. And he says, and now we're in the environment of turbulent. And he said, all the rules and all the benefits of lamina no longer exist. It's like, but people haven't even noticed it. It's perfectly fits into what you're talking about. You got to watch that if you haven't seen it, man.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's awesome.
I'll put that in the chat right now just so I can
I'll look it up.
Yeah, that's freaking epic. I haven't watched a TED Talk in quite some time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they're kind of crappy lately.
Oh, dude, they're so bad. That shit dropped off. Want to talk about blue pill. Mm-hmm. These guys got absorbed by the feminist agenda. Holy crap. Like every TEDx talk that's around me now, because I tried to become a TEDx speaker. Mm-hmm. I tried to talk to them about my holistic ways of healing PTSD. Okay. And and none of them would bite. Because the entire agenda was all about what's it called? Everything was just about like sexual assault, and it was giving voices to women that didn't. I don't know. It was so bad. It was so bad.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
Like, get out of here, guys.
I put it in the chat. I put it in the main chat right there.
I like it.
Yeah. So look, I got I think we don't have actually an overlapping crowd. To a degree we do, but to a degree we also don't, because I cater to like a Muslim demographic on Twitter. Yeah. And so there's probably some of them watching or will be watching in the near future. So why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself, like your history and that, like I know you were in the military and what you're doing, what you're up to.
Sure. So I guess the Cliff Notes, because I could turn that into an hour-long story.
Okay, the Cliff Notes then.
We'll do Cliff Notes. So I was born and raised in Connecticut to a very, very blue pill environment, right? Okay. I had a father who was essentially like a blue pill alpha, and he was insanely authoritarian to the point that the reason why I got to bring this up is I was the firstborn. I'm the patriarch of my entire family. Okay. And I come from an Italian-German family. One half is pure Italian. The other half is pure German. So my mom's side's German, dad's side's Italian. But the Italian side pretty much dominated, to be honest with you. Yeah. 10.5 months later, my sister was born. And there's this weird dichotomy of how I was raised, right? I was treated, I don't know if you've ever read the story Cinderella, but I was treated like Cinderella. I was the workhorse, the plow horse of the entire family. No emotions, no emotional support was ever given. It was just strictly nature. My dad's way of handling business was he's the hammer and everything is the nail. There was no nuance to anything. My dad had two speeds. It was either stoic with no emotion or rageful, right? So it's like you never knew who you were gonna get. The littlest thing could trigger him.
Man, yeah.
Now, and the reason why I bring this up, what's up?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just surprised because in my book I talked about this, about like having an unpredictable father and the effect that it has on children. Same thing, man. I had an unpredictable father. You never knew what was going on. There was a very randomness to his moods. Sorry, please continue.
No, dude, beautiful. Thanks for the interjection. I appreciate that. The worst part, however, was this though. My sister was the princess. My sister could do nothing wrong. So the dichotomy was this. I was the slave. I did everything. I had to do all the household chores. I wasn't allowed to have fun. Everything I did was work. Everything. Yeah. Right. And I was beat. Like not disciplined, but beaten. Right.
Understand.
So it was one of those things where, just like what you said, the message was never clear. You know what I mean? So it really messes with your mind. And then you have to sit there and you have to watch one of your other siblings who's receiving all the love in the world for zero effort, just because she's a girl. Yeah. Right? And just because she can manipulate using her emotions and stuff. Yeah. So the next part of that we got to talk about here is my mother. Because this is where a lot of people don't talk about this stuff. Mm-hmm. Most people would sit there and be like, oh, it's your father. And for years and years and years and years, it was my father. All the hatred, everything was garnered towards my father. Yeah. But again, that's the blue pill ideal. Because why? Well, my mother was addicted to my father's drama and abuse. Okay. My mother didn't have a motherly instinct to remove her own kin from an abusive situation whenever my father was taking it too far. My mother didn't have the strength, so to speak, right, to pack things up and get me out of there, right?
She is enjoying the roller coaster.
Exactly. So her own sexual strategy and her own desire for attention and drama trumped even her base instincts as a mother.
Yeah.
And then the entire time she played the victim, and she turned me into a surrogate boyfriend and dumped all of her emotional baggage on me during that time frame.
Wow.
Right? So think about how toxic this environment is, right?
Yeah, your mom treating you like a friend zone guy. Like, what the holy?
And this is what women are doing to their boys in today's culture. This is the ultimate means. This is the ultimate means of maintaining boys as boys, right? Yeah. This is essentially, and this is why I preach. 13 years old, a boy needs to go through some type of ritual or rite of passage. Yeah. And the thing is, it starts with fathers first, though, because the blue pill conditioning is that men and women are egalitarian and they have the same rights and roles within a relationship and within raising children. And it's like, no, it's like a mother will hold on to their kin and turn their boys into their surrogate boyfriends 100% of the time, because women don't understand masculinity and the need to remove and cut that umbilical cord, because women ultimately are always looking for some type and level of comfort in their relationships. Right. So hypergamously, we're going to understand that she had the alpha and then she had the beta through me. Right. In one household.
Wow. I never thought it. Dude, this is mad. You just like, you know what? I made a video. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys a story. And I'm gonna get trashed by Red Pill Manosphere Twitter, but I married a single mother. And it was in London. It was a Yemeni girl. She had a boy. He was like 6 years old. Now in Islam, we don't have a problem with marrying single mothers, but I absolutely completely, even back then, I ruled out that I was gonna be like actively involved in this boy's life. Because his father's alive and he lives right there in the city. It wasn't out of just being rude. I'm just like, he's got a dad. He don't need me. I'm like, he needs to go.
I don't need to be a placeholder or nothing. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But she insisted on this, and she was like, "Oh, you need to act like a father to him. This, that, that." I'm like, "Look, no, I don't." I said, "His dad is alive. His dad's in the city, and his dad wants to be an active part of his life." But observing this girl and the way she behaved, and it turned out to be a huge mistake. I should have never done it. But I always say to the guys online, I try everything so you don't have to. And this is chalked up as that experience. I made a video that you can still find on this channel to this day, where I made a video called Emotional Incest. And a lot of women with sons partake in emotional incest with their sons. They cannot differentiate nor separate, the position of their son from the position of their relationships. They let too much intermeld and mix up into it, and it's really it's like watching incest. It's really kind of vile to watch. And she was a perfect example of that. Marriage lasted like 3 months, bro.
It's terrible between mothers and sons in today's world, but we've also made it so that the fathers and daughters have the same relationship. One key one that I want to point out to you guys right now is this. Well, first and foremost, it was exactly that way between my father and my sister. My father has some type of love or lust for my sister to the point that he was willing to lose all frame, thinking that he could be that blue pill provider to her by giving her everything so that she could like him. Yeah. So there was that covert contract as well. And I want to point this out to you right now because there's one key aspect there's one key person in kind of the manosphere, so to speak, that this is occurring to right now. And it's Jordan Peterson. I want you to go and look at Jordan Peterson right now and look at his, you got to go behind the scenes. Jordan Peterson is sick as a dog right now. And the thing that you got to understand is, first and foremost, he married a feminist wife who probably is cold and all this other stuff. Jordan Peterson probably has this same kind of covert contract that happened between him and his mom that I'm talking about right now. Jay Smith in the comments is asking, did you grow up with religion? I did. I grew up with one half of my family as Roman Catholics and the other half is Protestant, and they're both very religious. Now, this is what I point to with at least a Christian religion, that those covert contracts are inbred into that religion, plain and simple. And you could see it because Jordan Peterson is obviously still very much addicted to that kind of Christian upbringing. He's always trying to go back to that TradCon way of doing business.
Absolutely.
Now, what am I talking about here? He's sick because his daughter, Michaela, who is also his CEO, he gave her the position of running his business, of his identity and all this other stuff. What has she done recently? Well, he gave her the platform to be known by letting her go on Joe Rogan because of all this stuff that if you go back and listen to how he talks about his daughter, he's got this really, really deep like love and connection to her, right? It's kind of gross, to be honest with you. But then she goes on Joe Rogan, right? And then all of a sudden, what she do? She starts posting all these photos on her Instagram. Like, you got to know this. Like,
I saw that.
This girl's insanely narcissistic to the point she's like literally sexualizing herself in every aspect, never putting photos of her husband up anywhere, right? Barely ever kid. It's all about her and her body.
Indeed.
And then what does she go and do? While her dad is pretty much having a breakdown, she goes and flies to Bucharest, Romania to sleep with the baddest motherfucker on the internet right now. But biggest internet bad boy, the biggest Chad that she could find right now with a blue check mark. And she essentially fucks him, right? I mean, we all know that what happened.
I don't know.
And then
did he say he did that? Did he say he banged her?
Get the fuck out of here, dude. You're not gonna fly some bitch out there to fucking just hang out and have steak with, man. I mean, man. even if you're not that attracted to her, man, you just got to pop a Cialis and you got to do it just for the principle. You got to do it for the principle.
Yeah. I can't say something as a father though. I'm a father to two daughters. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess it is literally the father figure thing. Girls are more connected to you because I have a bunch of boys too. I got 7 boys and 2 girls. And the girls are just more connected to you. They are more connected to you. Now, you as a father, of course, control the frame of the relationship and whatnot. You can't let that stuff go overboard. But like, all my sons are invited to travel with me. I travel a lot. They're invited to travel with me. Like, every time I travel, I go somewhere every weekend. And who only goes with me? Only my daughter goes with me. My sons are into their own things and whatever else. So, only my daughter travels with me. And that's just her choice.
What ages are your sons, if you don't mind me asking?
I got twin boys that are 25.
Right. They're both in the military. Yep.
Yeah. My daughter is 19, and then the other daughter that's really close to me, when I go visit her in London, she's like coming up on 3 now, but she's like really, really, really like, when I show up, she's just like, it's like I see her every day and I'm a superstar,
Yeah. I'll tell you why. and because we're talking about this dynamic now between masculine and feminine, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy because really, and this is what I talk about in my new book, A Patriarch's Vision, Purging Feminism.
Yeah, we definitely got to talk about that.
Yeah, no worries. Well, the thing is, everything comes down to sex. Everything comes down to sex because that's essentially how the universe was created. The universe was created to have everything's based off of magnetism. And that's something that we're really going to start learning about as we start to progress further and further in our evolution. So in order to have magnetism, you have to have what? You have to have two poles, positive and negative.
Yep.
Now, archetypally and mythologically, really what these two poles represent, the positive and negative, is the masculine and the feminine. Masculine being the positive, feminine being the negative.
Chaos, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? And we're order and light and all that other stuff as far as the masculine's concerned. Absolutely. Now, the thing is, and this is the big thing, in a family unit, that's how things are going to be. If you're the strong father that has all the resources and stuff like that, and your daughter is actually from the get-go, because her peak ages right now, her peak SMV is between 18 to 26. That's when she needs to be settling down. That's when she has to be having her kids. And then from there on out, after 26, her SMV starts to decline rapidly, right?
Yep.
So from the get-go, they're born already being able to manipulate and know the game. And they're born already knowing the sexual sphere, whereas men are kind of like created into it. Our SMV doesn't really start to peak until 35. That's because men have to build resources. They also have to be tested by nature to see if they'll survive. Is their genetic stock capable of enduring survival? Exactly.
Is it worthy of survival?
Exactly.
And being passed on.
Correct. Yeah. So we don't really start learning this stuff, right? You look at an 18-year-old kid and you watch him, or a 15-year-old boy, communicate with a woman. He's communicating with a woman like a woman because he hasn't gotten beaten up enough to realize, yo, you're in a fucking war zone, brother. You're not in a fucking happy-go-lucky rom-com. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, what I'm really getting at here is this. What's with the sunglasses? Don't worry about it, dude. I got all these lights, man. You can see the lights reflecting. Anyway, the thing is this: magnetism is always going to draw, right? Because of the polarities, it's always going to draw the two close together. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there, right? Absolutely. So mother to son, that's the innocent boy that part of her is wanting to, like, in a way, dominate, right? Because she's finally in a position to be able to dominate the masculine.
Yeah.
But then she's also attracted to the other side, like that dominant masculine, the alpha. And then the father to the innocent daughter, because at the same time too, no matter what, as men, we're still attracted to youth and fertility.
Yeah.
And that innocent feminine as well. So there's that draw. A little girl is going to be drawn directly to that beacon of masculinity, because that's within her DNA, that's within her code, right? And that's kind of how it is. And then the boy is going to be attracted to the mom because of nurturing.
Nice,
right? That's how my relationships were from 18 to 30 years old. I was always looking for, especially because I was raised in an environment where it was like a toxic relationship, especially with the feminine. I was always looking for a mother. I was looking for a woman that I can get into a sexual relationship with, but she was also going to be able to nurture me as far as a mother's concerned. This is what's wrong with the blue pill. This is what's wrong with blue pill men. And you can see it today in Elon Musk. You can see it today in fucking Jeff Bezos. You can see it today in Prince Harry. They all are looking for surrogate mothers. They turn the relationships over to the women. They say, all right, I'm going to be a boss in this sector of my life. But when it comes time to opening the door into my household, I take off my coat of being alpha. And now I can curl up into a ball and suckle at her teat and let her stroke my hair and tell me everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And then we could have some sex, right? Because that's how we show love. And then that's that, right? And it's like, that's not the way a relationship's supposed to work with a woman. No. Right? When you enter into your house, you actually need to be more fucking alpha. You need to be more centered. You need to be more masculine than ever. You need to be more stoic. You can't show You can't show that the world has affected you. Why?
No.
Because that's the only place in your life that you can guarantee that you're the fucking king. That's your castle. That's your domain. Your woman needs to know that you're the captain of the ship, that everything is fucking tight, that you're on course, that the plot is charted and the direction you guys are going is there. Because the second she sniffs any level of weakness or lack of control is the second her hypergamy is going to start to just go. Why? Because it's a survival thing. It's a survival thing, though. It's like, oh shit, I am not with the alpha of the pack. We're gonna get overrun. So now I need to start detaching myself emotionally from this man because we're gonna get overrun by other stronger men. And in order for my genes and my genetics and my life to continue, I'm gonna have to latch onto that guy. So this is why, a lot of people in the space, they get mad about hypergamy and they're like, women, blah, women, blah. It's like, no, you got to look at it from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, guys. You got to look at it from a biological level. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. The thing is this, and this is why people get mad. It's because, you know what? You got to do work to be the best. You got to do the work to be the best. And a lot of guys shirk that responsibility and instead want to be victims like little feminists and say, oh, that's not fair. Well, guess what, motherfucker? Life isn't fair. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to rise up to the occasion. You got to do it. You have to do it, plain and simple. So there's that aspect.
I want to talk about something that you actually covered in there. When we look at behaviors, when you say biological behaviors in terms of attraction and whatnot, even in children and fathers, mothers, whatever else. I was actually researching at one point a theory called, it's not even a theory, it's called supernormal stimuli. And supernormal stimuli are specific behaviors that every creature is born with, and they stay with them generally throughout either their entire life or aspects of their life. So an example of supernormal stimuli would be like a baby. I don't know if you ever dealt with any babies, but they automatically, if you put your finger out, they'll grab it. If you put I don't care if it's 2 days old, you put your finger inside the palm of the hand of a baby and it'll automatically close. That's a supernormal stimuli. And so basically, when we look at stuff from a biological standpoint, from attraction or whatever else, and this is why I don't buy into the agendas of, men and women, the name which will not go spoken. Basically, that's why I don't buy into it, because attraction is something that fits along the lines of supernormal stimuli. You could take a guy, lock him in a closet until he's 18 years old, take him out of that closet, stand a naked man in front of him and a naked woman in front of him, and who's he going to be attracted to?
Absolutely.
Even though he'll probably be crazy after 18 years in a closet, but that's besides the point. You get my example. What's he going to be attracted to? He's going to be attracted to the naked woman. So,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, going back into my book that's coming out here shortly, that is the number one. That's the number one basis. It's either number one or number two that I talk about, right? Because the thing is, right now, is that we've been so inundated with this social engineering bullshit in the West of like trying to blame everything on social constructs. That this agenda is meant to take stupid people who don't want to understand us as a species, right? As an animal, as an organism, right? The standpoint that I come from with everything is truth, right?
Yeah.
You got to break everything down to the lowest common denominator and say, all right, that's true. Okay. So then how do you build a society or civilization based off of that? And then how do we do it so that not just do we have that as a foundation for our life, right, in our communities, but how do we also thrive based off of knowing that knowledge? Because that's really what it comes down to. People should, and this is what pisses me off about the whole transgender LGBT stuff that's going on right now is people are promoting this stuff as a means for them to get some kind of like social clout. They don't for their own narcissistic and sociopathic kind of endeavors, right? It's all meant for them to get attention. The way that I operate business is I talk about information and knowledge and wisdom that is meant to help people attain happiness, right? Because that's what truth should be. It's a means to slice through the bullshit and to get people to stop doing bad things in their life that is distractive or leads them astray and gives them more bumps and bruises. I would much rather take the hot iron, right, and slice through the bullshit that's painful and have you analyze your life and say, all right, cool, now I'm on the right track. I was talking with John, MLD, yesterday.
Okay.
And I was saying, you know who your best friend is? Your best friend is the guy of the group that calls you out on your bullshit all the time, that holds you to the highest standard, that will sit there and not placate you and give you platitudes, but will instead be like, yo, dude, hey, man, you're getting a little fat right now, man, to be honest with you. Or, hey, that girl that you're dating right now, get rid of her. That's your best friend. Why? Why is he your best friend? Well, because he's looking out for your best interest and he's trying to push you to be the best you can be, right? But a lot of people will associate that man as the bully or the evil one, or the, maybe even, if you want to get that insecure, the jealous one. But that guy is actually looking out for your best interest by telling you straight up, like, it's like if you got shit in your teeth, the guy that's going to come up to you and be like, yo, you got shit in your teeth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Other people will sit there, they'll see it in your teeth and they'll be like, hey bro, like what's going on? And they'll talk to you for a half hour while you got shit in your teeth.
Yeah.
It said someone could just be like, yo, you got shit in your teeth, bro. Like, clean that shit up.
Yeah, that's your homie.
Yeah,
I 100 know what you're saying.
So I'll get back into my story real quick, just so, I mean, because we got caught up on just my upbringing, but I ended up recognizing and realizing how my lifestyle and my upbringing in that family was a war zone in of itself. It was just, I was never ever going to get the respect. I was never going to survive in that environment. I grew up in a small town. And I remember when September 11th happened, I was really affected by that. I was 16 and a half. I literally lived an hour and a half away from New York City. Anyway, I'm graduating. I have no clue what I'm going to do. It's like everyone's saying, go to college, go to college, go to college. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I come from a lower middle class family. They're not going to pay for me to go to college. And we just invaded Iraq. And I was like, fuck it. Let's join the military.
Wow.
And I'd always been drawn to the military.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose the Marine Corps mainly because that was the most masculine. And I was looking deep down for a masculine mentor. It was like, part of me was go to war. That'll be your rites of passage. Another part of me was this is a true brotherhood where they fight and they kind of train you to, become a man, so to speak. And another part of me was like, maybe I will find some type of masculine mentor in that swath of men that will be able to kind of help me, because intrinsically that's what boys are looking for. Yeah. Boys are looking for a masculine leader to show me the way, show me how to be masculine. But the thing is, and I'm sure you can agree, especially during that time frame, we started allowing more and more females into the military. Yeah. And that's where I was able to start to see this true dichotomy between how when men are alone and when men are around women.
That's a huge, man. That's a biggie. Let me ask you something on that before we go too much further. In terms of rites of passage and the military, would you suggest that a modern day young man join the U.S. military?
Oh man, that's such a hard question. Because in my book, I do talk about, I believe every man needs to be a warrior. So I believe every man needs to be in the military. That needs to be his service. That needs to be his service to his society, not just a nation, but his society. At a base level, everyone needs to understand how to protect their boundaries. And when you have a civilization or society, there is a boundary that's drawn around, because every society and every civilization has a culture.
Yeah.
And that's a natural boundary in of itself, right? It's like you have a different culture than I do. Now, we can be friends and stuff like that, but there's going to be a lot of things that you don't agree with what I do, and there's going to be a lot of things where I don't agree with what you do. That's cool. But we're separate, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but the thing is, one thing we do realize is there are bad people out there too. There are bad communities that are going to try to come in, steal your stuff, come in, take over your culture, or do whatever. So everyone needs to be trained on how to do that. And I think that men are naturally born to be warriors, right? I think that's now the problem is this: in today's society, in today's military, with women being in the military and with the lack of standards being held, it's hard for me to sit there and say, yes, you should go and join the military. But I will say this. I think if you could extrapolate the lessons and gain the skills like I was able to from the military, then it's a good choice. Ideally, what I would like to see is no more women in the military, no more women in the government, period. And then that's when I would ideally say, yes, men need to join the military. But the problem is, because we allowed women into it, it's no longer meant to turn boys into men. Instead, it's meant to be a bureaucratic corporate world that just deals on the side of killing bad guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have the ethos of the war. It doesn't have the ethos of the warrior any longer, because the second you allow women in it, men start to compete against one another, and they value male relationships lower so that they can go and get the woman. The next thing is this. The next thing is, anytime you allow a woman into an environment where you're trying to push men to a very high standard, you have to lower the standard for women. So now what does that do for other men? It's kind of like my upbringing. It threw me off, because I'm in this environment. So like, you were Army?
Air Force. Chair Force, man. Chair Force.
Good for you.
No, chair Force.
Chair Force. Now, let me tell you this. And this is something that did happen in my boot camp. So Marine Corps boot camp is the hardest boot camp out there. It's 3 months long, and you go through this very contrived kind of like way of breaking you down and building you back up. Yeah. And even in boot camp, it's what's known as the 10%. It's the 10% that slide through the cracks, that meet the bare minimum, or because they have to kind of maintain some level of quota of pushing people through, that they have to graduate. You'll see. Yeah, I love that. Perfect.
It's a true hadith too.
No kidding. That's beautiful. I mean, that's perfectly said. It's so true. And I even draw some correlations in my book between the Queen coming to power and the rise of feminism, and how it's the destruction of the West. So, where was I? Oh, so what I'm saying is this. So even in boot camp, what I started to see was me, who was trying to strive to the highest level possible, right? And get like honor grad and all this other stuff, and really being pushed through the gauntlet. There were still some guys in our boot camp that put in bare minimum and didn't hit the standards and weren't rising to be the best, that still graduated and got the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, which is supposed to be like the ceremony where it's like, you made it, right? Like that's your initiation. But you still see some people where the standard was kind of dropped for them, right? And it's like, in your mind, it's like, we just got the same title. However, my value that I put into this was way higher, and it was just given to this person. You can't have a system like that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And when you incorporate women into it, that's what happens. If you watch any movie in today's world, when it comes to like women being a superhero and all this other stuff, no woman has to go through a rites of passage or go through the hero's journey or whatnot, right? Yeah. Every woman that becomes a superhero in today's superhero movies is just born being the best. And in our minds, we subconsciously, this is why people are rejecting the new Star Wars and all this other stuff. And it's because it's like, archetypally, mythologically, like you said, just like what you said with a man and a woman, a man could be locked 18 years and then see a naked woman and be automatically attracted to it. Also, we recognize these stories that are kind of like inbred and ingrained into our collective subconscious that hit these archetypes that we're supposed to live up to. Masculine supposed to live up to the warrior, to the king, to the magician, to all this other stuff. And the feminine is supposed to match up to the ideal feminine, the queen, the princess, all this other stuff with like innocence and all that crap. So when we see a woman that doesn't go through this process, and even if she did, we still wouldn't connect to it, because it's just not based on reality, and it's not what's best for our evolution, right? Indeed. What's best for our evolution is men living in those archetypes and women living in their own archetypes, and then becoming the best version of themselves within those two things.
Yeah, agreed.
Does it make
Sam
sense?
said something. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Sam said something about like, where is it? Let me see if I can find it here. Martial arts is let me post it up here. So he said, martial arts is supplanted military is the last unassailable male-only space that is unapologetically competitive and rewards only winners. None of this even gets a medal Horse shit.
Yeah.
I want to say this, Sam. I think the military is still viable, but you have to do, and I'm not just saying this because my sons did it, but you have to do like my sons do. You have to go for special operations. If you want a bastion of masculinity where women just aren't going to get in, it's special operations. Both my sons are special operations, so.
Yeah, I worked with special operations in the Marine Corps. As a matter of fact, my ex-girlfriend, as crazy as this sounds, my ex-girlfriend was one of the first females to go through IOC, which is the infantry officer course, which is one of the hardest courses for. She failed. She was a badass CrossFitter and all this other stuff. And then because she was kind of a celebrity, which is stupid. No one should be a celebrity in the military. You need to be a fucking number on paper. Like, you need to lose all identity. You can't have any of this stuff. Plain and simple. It's a part of learning your identity. It's a part about learning freedom. You need to be a number on paper, and you need to learn that you're a pawn right from then there. It's like what I talked about. Like, you got to be beat up by nature first before you can thrive, right? Absolutely. So she was actually she was a logistics officer at MARSOC. So they did start letting women into the special operations community in these secondary billets, right? So I completely disagree with it. I don't believe in it whatsoever. I'm even going to go so bold as to say that all women need to be removed from the military. It weakens our posture. What's our military meant for?
War, man. Come on.
Exactly. War is not fair. And I can tell you this firsthand because this is where the story is essentially going to. Yeah. I fought in Afghanistan. I watched my best friend get blown up right in front of me. And then as I was moving him out to get Kazavaked, I subsequently got blown up. Oh. Yeah, from dismounted IED. I got rocked. I got blown back like 15 feet into a wall. A blast was like 15 feet in front of me. I couldn't believe. I can't believe I'm still in one piece. I saw a ball of fire come at me and throw me into a wall. And then I remember waking up and I'm just like, I'm fucking dead. And I just remember touching myself and patting myself. And I'm like, holy fuck, I'm in one piece. I don't this is insane. So anyway, saw extensive combat in Afghanistan. And actually during that exact day, I ended up getting back up after that. And I ended up charging across an open field, laden with IEDs, obviously. And we ended up getting L-shaped ambushed by the Taliban. And I ended up running back across that field 3 times, carrying 3 injured people while we were getting ambushed. And the crazy part was I was supposed to receive a super high award for that because of my heroism or whatever, right? And I didn't. I learned the politics of the military in this feminine dominated. So the general that was in charge of all this stuff, she was a woman.
Oh, jeez.
Right? My battalion commander for my what's it called was a woman. Yeah. Right. So they don't understand anything about honor or any of this stuff. They only understand how to play the political game. Yeah. And it was like, here I am. I'm this, like, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I pushed the boundaries in the military, but that was my job. I was a staff NCO. I was a sergeant, high-level sergeant in special operations. My job was not to say yes up and no down. My job was to sit here and say, I was a counterintelligence, human intelligence specialist. I'm here to give you the information, the facts, and the knowledge of what's happening on the ground. I'm not here to sugarcoat you. I'm not here to give you the fucking happy news. I'm here to tell you what the fuck is going on. So it was one of those things where by principle, they're like, this guy's a cowboy, this guy's a renegade, and we're just not going to give it to him or else his ego is going to go out of control. And it's like,
I'm not your friend's own boyfriend. That's not what I'm here for.
Well, and that's what they did. And the thing was, a girl ended up getting a higher award than me when she was just a desk jockey and a whatever, what's it called? Because she caught a guy, third-party national, I believe. I don't know if he was Afghan or whatnot, but he was peeking in the girl's tent. And she saw him peeking in the girl's tent, and she yelled at him and said, "Hey, stop!" And then chased after him and found him. And she got an award for that. And it's like the military now is turning into this "you go girl" environment where it's teaching men, again, like what you're taught in in school, lower your value, lower your ability to compete. If you compete and you are competitive and you rise up, you're the bad guy. You're the patriarchy, right? So you need to lower your masculinity. You need to lower your own worth. You can't be competitive because now you're a bad guy. And what you need to do is you need to be the bench, right? You need to be the bench by which a girl can stand upon and raise her fist in the air and say, I defeated the patriarchy. Now, there's one more thing in there that I got to share with you guys too. So this is about 2 weeks after I personally got blown up, walking through Sangin, Afghanistan, watching my friend get killed. 2 people died, by the way, that day, and 3 people were badly wounded. This place is a fucking hell of a war zone. And you know what they do 2 weeks later? They fly in 2 female Marines, which is called the FET. This is the new thing they're trying to do, with a bunch of reporters and media people with cameras. And they fly these girls in, and these girls have not seen a lick of war. They've not been trained in any infantry tactics or any of this other stuff. They smell fresh. They smell great. Their hair is perfect. They haven't been living in the fucking middle of the desert with nothing like I have for the last 4 months, right? Fighting a fucking war. They fly in on a helicopter, and they automatically, this media, whatever, they fly in with a colonel, by the way. And they say, you're going to go and take these girls out on a patrol and walk around right now. And then we're going to interview them afterwards. And then we're going to put this on the cover of the Marine Corps Times that these women are on the front lines in Sangin, Afghanistan. Total media op. So now we have to go and we have to walk around this place that's laden with IEDs buried in the ground that we have no idea how to detect. So we're going to go and we're going to sacrifice our best fucking Marines in order for you guys to get a fucking photo
for a photo op.
To try to show it as though these women are out on the front lines of battle. One time, these girls go on patrol. One time, we're ordered to do this, and then they take these photo ops. It's also
why society is not prepared for like the ugliness of war in the modern day age. They make war look pretty. Like you said, they get off a helicopter, they're looking pretty, hair done, smelling nice, and that's the photos that they get also. Oh, look, war is so pretty and nice, and these girls walking around made up. And then when there's actually people getting blown up, getting shot, getting injured, because I was at Langstuhl at the time, and dudes were being flown in, bodies were being flown in, the injured were being flown in. These guys weren't in any pretty condition. Nope. You know, to everybody watching this, when you see a guy who's been in an IED or been close to one, a pebble the size slightly bigger than a grain of sand becomes a freaking mini super sharp razor blade. And these guys are pockmarked. They look like someone's done took a cheese grater and then, I don't know, an ice pick and just in his face. I mean, it's not pretty. And it's so this is part of the reason why, you know, they're not prepared for war nowadays. You know, they're so scared of it. Oh, we shouldn't. Our enemies ain't thinking like that. You know, they're ready to throw down. They're ready to die. You know,
dude, these fucking Taliban, bro. They said one of these guys, because that's what I would do is I actually worked with Taliban. my job was to go and no kidding, like I would work with people that were giving me information and all this other stuff, and I would also parlay with these guys. I'd have shuras, right? We talk. That was my job, and I was in a meeting with these guys at one point, and one of the guys looks at me and he goes, "You Americans may have the watches, but we have the time." And that's their ethos, man. They're like, we will fight forever. Yeah. Because fuck you. Right? Yeah. Like we don't have anything else better to do than to just draw this shit out forever.
Yeah. That's why they call Afghanistan the graveyard of armies. I mean,
exactly. It's bred into them, dude. These guys have been a tribal warrior culture for fucking centuries. They don't have any understanding of that shit. We think, we could decimate that place. We could destroy it if we wanted to, but it would fucking cause mass casualties, right? We could win, but it's not the way to obviously win the war. And I don't think Afghanistan and Iraq were never meant to be won. It was meant to be sustained. That's how you put more money into the coffers of these military industrial complex guys. But anyway, I ended up walking away from Afghanistan with a tremendous respect for the Taliban. Obviously working closely with these guys and fighting them at the same time. It's just like entering the cage, right? You enter there with a bit of hatred and whatever towards the other person, and then you end up walking out with respect after you fight, right? So, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So this is another thing that I want to mention. Because of that, because of me going on that patrol with these women too, I could tell what was going on, because this is also something that is deep within our genetic code as far as men are concerned, and it can't be socially extracted from our DNA. The entire time we were on this patrol, what do you think everyone was focused on? Were we focused on the mission, covering our sectors, watching our fucking, we'll call it IOI just because it's a typical term, or was everybody at certain points in time constantly looking up to make sure that the girls were okay?
Of course,
it distracted
the girls.
It distracted us from the mission.
Yeah.
But just like what you said, these people that haven't ever really been initiated into manhood, that have never really been cut in the cloth of war or combat, they think that this is all a game. They're sitting in Washington, D.C., Tampa, all this other stuff, watching war from a fucking video screen, from a UAV, from a satellite. And they're just like, oh, it's players on a fucking video game. This isn't real. So we can throw in and do this stuff. I had a teacher one time, one of the greatest teachers. He was one of my, he was an English teacher, but his logic was just so good. And you could never tell. The beauty of this teacher too was you could not tell what his politics were, because he presented every single argument and then he broke it down shotgun style. Like for instance, he broke down the argument of guns, right? Like guns and gun rights. He's like, yes, everyone should be able to protect themselves, but when you look at these mass shootings, you still need to put some level of blame on that AR-15. Why? Well, because that AR-15 is meant to provide mass amounts of casualties.
Okay.
He's like, so it is the person and it is the gun. He's like, well, where are we in the society? What do you got to do to fix it? So it's like, damn, for these staunch 2A Republicans are like, it's not the gun, it's the person. And then for the staunch Democrats are like, it's the gun, it's not the person. Right? Yeah. It's like, now you have a middle road where it's like nuance. Holy crap. That's absolutely right. What do we got to do? My answer to that is obviously you need to train a society to be full. Everyone needs to be trained in self-defense. Yep. That way a gun doesn't matter, right? You can either shoot to kill because you're trained in self-defense, or you can disarm. Everyone needs to be responsible for their own self-defense. Anyway, that's a tangent that kind of took me off this. His next point was this: should women be in the military? And this is a classroom. I'm living in Southern California in San Diego, which is super liberal. And like 70% of the classroom is girls, and they're all fucking feminists, right? Wow. And he presents this case: should women be in the military? Yeah. And we go through the logical conclusions of what it comes down to. And at the end of it, he's like, this is what it comes down to, because we did the work. It's like, women should not be in the military. Why? Well, because the military has one specific mission. It's to win wars. Does adding women to the military benefit us winning wars, or does it weaken our posture? And the answer came down to, well, it weakens our posture. Yeah. For XYZ, because it ruins the brotherhood and the bond between men, because it lowers the standards, because men are inclined to worry more about women and compete against one another when they're in this brotherhood. It weakens posture. It's a weak chain. It's a weak link in the chain that we don't need. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So what it comes down to is we don't need women in the military. We're doing it based off of this silly fucking contrivance that this is progress. It's like, no, that's not progress. You're killing and hurting more people by doing something like this.
Yeah, all right. I didn't want to interrupt you, but there was an article, and I actually did a video on it also. You can still find it on the channel also. I read an article where it showed conclusively with proof that women in the military reduce preparedness, combat preparedness. They bring, like you said, they bring down the standards. They can't keep up on almost every single measured metric that the military has for combat troops. And they said, and now trying to get them in there, they have to lower the standards, which of course reduces preparedness.
I believe in 2015 or 16, the Marine Corps did an extensive study by integrating. They did one platoon of just all males. They did one platoon of just all females. And then they did one cohab, right? One integrated platoon of men and women. And they put them through the entire infantry training and the infantry course for enlisted Marines, not officers. Yeah. And they put them through a bunch of battle tests and all this other stuff. And overwhelmingly, it was shown that the male platoon did far better than both the integrated and the female platoon. The female platoon missed the mark on so many things as far as being battle ready and all this stuff. It just does not work. But guess what? I hate to turn it into this, but this was during the Obama era, and this is when everyone was in peak wokeness. They said you will not use this study, and you will start to integrate female platoons with male platoons. That was the order from the Secretary of Navy.
Yeah.
Can you believe that stuff, man?
Yes, insane. I can. Unfortunately, it's just madness, though.
Anyway, so there's that. That's what I had to go through, and I learned a lot of stuff from my military experience of being integrated with women, and having and seeing all this stuff, going to war and going through all this stuff, and then being treated and thrown through the gauntlet after coming back, mainly by my female superiors as well, and all this other stuff. So it feminizes the military, man. Having women in the military, having women in any type of guys club, it feminizes it, and it detracts from what it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. So we've established, I'm just going to declare it. Corey has gone through the male rites of passage. He's qualified. That's it. So you know what you're talking about. Let me ask you about your book. Now, you have a book. What's the book called? I'm going to see if I can't pull it up here and everything. I'm going to drop the link in the conversation. Let me know about the book. You have a book talking about how we're going to basically use cancel culture. We're going to cancel feminism. What's the title? Hit me up.
All right. So it's called The Patriarch's Version, Purging Feminism. Now, here's what it comes down to is there's a lot of people out there. I get a bunch of emails right now already where they're like, Corey, you talk about never fighting feminism head on. What are you doing here? Right? Purging. You're talking about fighting feminism head on. And it's like, no. This book, really, honestly, I only talk about feminism in like one chapter and I destroy it. Right? Like feminism from a philosophical, logical standpoint and from a biological and I guess even evolutionary standpoint, it's moot. It's such an easy thing to defeat just by talking about it that it's silly. So there's only one chapter in there. I am not telling men whatsoever to stand up and fight against feminism, go to your local ballot box and do XYZ. And we need to go march on fucking Washington, D.C. and have a men's rights rally of cancel feminism, get it out of our universities and stuff like that. No. Right? That's not how we win this because feminism has been ingrained into our financial institutions, our medical institutions, our militaries, our schools and universities, our religions, right? And our judiciary, especially here in the West, right? You can't win. That's the entire machine. Every cog in the wheel has been infected by feminism. So what do we have to do? Well, the answer from what my perspective is this. I'm writing a book towards men to change at the individual level. And by purging feminism, what I'm talking about is removing the conditioning of feminism from you personally. I've been through many a spiritual journey. And what we do in that is you purge things that are no longer serving you out of your system, whether it be energetically or even just actually vomiting or purging it up, right? Yeah, post that link if you don't mind. Click that and put that in the chat. So
I put that in the chat actually.
Perfect. Oh yeah, I see it. Cool. Guys, click that link. This is going to be able to get you on my mailing list. I'm going to send you a free chapter. Actually, I'm going to send that out probably today or tomorrow. And it's going to get you on the mailing list because what we need to do is we need to coordinate this so that it's marketed properly, right? When it hits Amazon, the second you guys buy it, it sends a message. It sends a message that says this book is of importance, right? So it can potentially get on the Amazon bestseller list. That's what I'm trying to do, right? Get it promoted a little bit more because why? Like what I'm talking about. We need to purge feminism from men. This is men's new rites of passage. It's removing the conditioning of feminism from your body, from your mind, from your psyche, from your consciousness. And that's what this book does, right? Rollo Tomasi's book, The Rational Male, teaches men about female nature. It teaches people about the veil of the matrix. This is essentially getting it out of you. It's purging it out of you, right?
Yeah, there we go.
So yeah, perfect. So that's essentially what that comes down to. That's what this book's about. Now, just to kind of let you guys know what I talk about in it, because it's beautiful. Everything we've talked about so far in our conversation has pretty much hit some level of what this book is about. So just to share with you guys what the book is about, chapter by chapter, to understand what you would be getting involved in by reading this book. I talk about this. I talk about understanding society. So you need to understand why we have societies. You have to understand where our societies have failed today. And that comes down to a lengthy process of going through 9 major things: not understanding our species from the biological level, failure to teach a true understanding of nature, like we were talking about earlier today, not having survival skills. Every single person from a base level needs to understand how to survive. If shit were to hit the fan, right? Like, it's incumbent upon every individual to have that safety. Why? Because right now our society is taught, don't have these skills, and instead government and our infrastructure is going to save you. And it's like, you can't rely on that stuff. Because what ends up happening, we end up turning it into a tax extortion fucking society. People end up giving their rights and freedoms over to a government that ends up becoming abusive and tyrannical, right? And then you end up in a situation we're in today where everyone's being indoctrinated into feminism. It's like, no, people have to have a base level of survival skills so that they can understand their own autonomy as an individual. That's beautiful, right? That's power. The next thing is not teaching self-defense. We have a society where people are taught to give their ability to self-defend over to a government that then restricts their own rights as an individual, right? Yeah. Every single animal, every single creature, every single species that's on this planet has their own form of survival skills and self-defense that's ingrained into them. But we as a culture, we as a species, we have to train that stuff. It needs to be trained into us. But the problem is it's been trained out of us. Look at our school systems today. What do they teach boys who get involved with roughhousing or show any type of level of aggression or anything like that? Oh, you're a bad boy. You're defective. You need to go in timeout or you're going to get kicked out of the school. Yep. It's like, okay, then the parents are like, oh shit, well, that's my daycare system. So I can't have my kid get removed. You're bad. It's like every level of people learning self-defense and sticking up for themselves and establishing boundaries is removed. That's a feminine condition.
Yep.
Next, lack of initiation into manhood and masculine mentorship. I talked about that ad nauseum today, but I go deep into that as far as rites of passage. Not teaching philosophy. Everything I've talked to you guys about so far today has been from a philosophical standpoint. All of my reasoning has been not just logical and rational, but my premises has equaled to my conclusion, right? It's inputs of information. We live in a society that's taught that emotion is truth. And the downfall about having emotion as truth is tomorrow I can experience a different emotion and have a different truth. It's like, no, you have to there needs to be base conclusions that can be tested and tried over and over again, right? Through rational discourse and debate to see if that's the best option, if that's true. Yeah. And that's something people are taught how to think, not what to think. Or sorry, people are taught what to think, not how to think. We need to condition people on how to think. That's what our educational system should be. Here's how you process information and here's how you come up with your own conclusions, rather than here, ingest all this data and regurgitate it on the test, then data dump it. That's essentially what our school systems are today. Failure to foster the positive feminine. That's where I really take on feminism. It's just one chapter of it. Failure to understand spirituality, and then failure to understand the sexual marketplace. These are all things that people need to kind of understand. And that's what I believe would be a tremendous foundation if people were to put into practice all these things for an amazing society and civilization to thrive on.
I can't disagree with that, man. I can't disagree with that. That's like, I'm looking forward to that coming out, man. You actually sent me a chapter I need to get down to reading, and I'm trying to finish the last chapter on my book, and then I want to get down to like reading, because I've got a bunch of material from a bunch of different people to read, but I want to make that a priority to read.
Dude, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what, man, I normally read a book a month, or if not more. But as I was writing this, putting a couple hours in a day and all this other stuff, I couldn't read any other words. Like, I know what I'm saying is I understand your pain. It's like, oh, somebody sent me something new to read. Oh my God. I've been fucking staring at a screen for 4 hours now, writing down all this stuff. My brain is cooked. I don't want to read anybody else's words right now. It's fucking insane.
It's tough, man. It's tough. It really is. And you'd be surprised at how many different materials I got. I got like 3 video courses that guys sent me that they've developed, and one of them's out already. I got 3 more books. Dude, it's when am I supposed to do all this?
I agree.
I'm interested in doing it, but I just can't. Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to that coming out. So,
thanks, dude.
Guys are like signing up.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I was going to say release date is tentative on March 1st. So, like I said, get on that mailing list, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys an email. I'm going to send you guys some updates, and there's also an incentive, obviously, for you guys to buy the book within the first week as well. Like I said, the game plan is for it to make a splash on Amazon. I would love to see that cover on the front page, on the top 10 list, right, of Amazon to just see the reactions, plain and simple. So
awesome.
If you guys want to get on board with that, please do join that mailing list. Throw your email in there. Like I said, I'll give you a free chapter that I'm going to be sending out here shortly. And then I'll give you guys some updates, and we're going to coordinate when it drops the ability for you guys to purchase that via Amazon. So it'll be epic.
Awesome. So he actually, guys, if you want to get like a priority question answered, you can always hit that $ on there, and I have no choice but to respond to you. But you ask a good question. And when we look at like the history of mankind, when we look at the development of societies in general, there has always been a spiritual or religious aspect to every society that has been successful. We have never seen an atheist or a hedonistic society be successful. We've never seen it develop into something that's great. When we're talking about like what's going on right now in terms of like feminism and how men are being, emasculated and just the way things are just going horribly, where does spirituality play a part in that for you? Because as a Muslim, masculinity is ingrained into the religion of Islam. I mean, the man is obligated to take care of the woman. She has no obligation whatsoever to work, to contribute to the household, whatever. What this does is it puts him in a position of authority in the household. It puts him at that position as the hypergamous leader of the house. Now, of course, there can be better men, but in her particular zone, that puts him in that position of authority. And there's also I'll call it surrogate authority of the religion, which says that, to a woman that, look, this man, you have to absolutely obey him as long as he commands you with that which is not impermissible in the religion. Basically, the rule is if it's not in disobedience to Allah, then you have to obey him in that thing. So where does spirituality fit in this for you? For
sure. So my problem is I don't believe in any type of monolithic type of religion. Why is that? And I'll tell you the reason why. Because I've explored consciousness and I understand how consciousness has been divvied up. I've gone and searched to find God and talk directly to God. And every single time it's always been me. As weird as that sounds. So I had to sit there and I had to say, okay, if I'm knocking on the door of God and I'm trying to talk to God, and every single time it's just me responding, what does that mean essentially? Well, it means that I am God. So what does that mean then? So what does that mean? We got to understand it there. Well, it means that, okay, maybe God does not want to be one individual identity, but instead has created consciousness in order to explore consciousness itself from different perspectives and different frequencies. So if God is all energy and I am a frequency of that energy, technically I am God experiencing other frequencies. Does that make sense? Think of it like a mirror. If God is a mirror and you take that mirror and you just drop it and it shatters into all these pieces, each piece is now a different shape and a different form that reflects light in a different way. It's a different spectrum.
I see what you're saying, but of course, as a Muslim, then I'm gonna have to disagree because here's the thing.
I love
God, Allah, as we call him as Muslims, he created us and he gave us specific commands and ways that he wants to be worshipped and that he wants to be addressed. The way that we address him when we speak to him, prayer, whatever else, what we call dua, supplication. So if a person is not following the contract that God has sent down through his prophets and messengers to speak to him, why would he respond? Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. And what it comes down to is this. Yeah. So this is what I talk about in the book. So because essentially, so what you're also talking about right there is kind of like what the Christians say here in the West. It's like, well, if you don't believe in God, then society can crumble because there's not going to be any type of morality. There's not going to be any code. There's not going to be any, because that's essentially what religions have been. A religion has always been a means for the masses to be able to follow one strict direction of what is law, because we need order. Otherwise, we're all just going to be scattered to the winds. People like use the term anarchy, but it's not the right term. That it's chaos. That's essentially what it is. It's chaos, and we can't have that.
Well, this is basically what I was saying in different words.
I agree. So here's the thing, though, is like if you want to talk to God, why don't you just go ahead and look around at nature and you look at the law of physics, because God created those laws.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the laws that we know for sure are the foundations of our existence.
Absolutely.
So,
I can agree because Allah says in the Quran, if you want to believe, observe the creation, meaning nature and the world and whatnot. Allah says this in the Quran.
Thank you. So that's essentially what my book talks about, though, is it's like, you want to hear the laws? Okay, well, here are the laws. Yeah. Here's how everything was built from the foundation on up for you to understand these laws as well. And here's how you live in a society where you can have these laws, but minus, because here's the downfall, dude. And this is one thing that I got to say to you is that anytime you worship something, you give away your own personal sovereignty. You put yourself as a lower being, and you give yourself the ability to be controlled.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? And that's kind of the downfall that we see in today's society, because when we look around, people have sold their souls to the media today. People are Fox News supporters or CNN or MSNBC. That's who does the thinking for them. They worship that identity of being X. So therefore, they will listen to all the zealots that will push that ideology.
Yeah.
And my ideology is, and this is from my first book, my ideology is this: I'm not anything specific. I'm not anything like, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not XYZ. You can't label me. The only thing you can label me as is as Corey Capella. And if you want to know, then you need to ask. You need to learn. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is essentially what we're doing right now. You're like, hey, man, what do you think on this? Hey, man, what do you think on that? Hey, man, what do you think on this? That's beautiful, right? It's like, there's nothing better in this world than being your own individual and having your own personal identity, but belonging to a tribe or a culture or a civilization that also appreciates that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I have a suggestion for you.
Oh, let's hear it.
I would suggest you research Islam, because everything we talk about that's wrong with Western society, Islam has an answer for it. And one can definitely not argue with the concept and the idea that the creator of something understands the creation the best. And so me, as a believer that Allah is the creator of mankind, he is definitely going to know his creation best. And that's why he has these laws in place that actually check everything that's happening to us right now.
For sure.
I would say research it, man.
I'll tell you what, because the majority of my time frame was spent in the Middle East, and I was working with all Muslims, right? That's who my sources were. I've done extensive knowledge. That's why I can sit here and I can appreciate your standpoint on certain things as well, right? But I'll also tell you this, because if you want to do research, and this might go against your religion, though. So I'm not trying to convert you at all. But what I did was I tapped into ancient shamanic rituals that have been passed down since 10,000 years ago. And that's what I did in order to go search for this stuff. It was like, how do I find the truth? Right.
Yeah.
And essentially what it comes down to is what I wrote is what I believe to be the truth. And the thing is, I answer all the questions in this book, because the question is, Corey, what do you think of when it comes to spirituality? Well, that's the one thing. If you understand God and his creation, right, this one thing, you got to understand that God then did create reality through what two things? By creating this magnetism of having the positive and the negative. Those are the two pistons by which our material world went from consciousness into material. And what are those two pistons, though? Those two pistons, then, if it's positive and negative, then are also masculinity and femininity. That input output, that binary, is the building block of our physical reality. And that's why I push back so hard against these SJWs and all these other people, because what they're essentially trying to do is they're trying to tear down the fabric of reality by tearing down the binary of masculine and feminine, or male and female. So when it comes to spirituality, you have to understand it. It's almost like the perfect representation of it, even though I don't know if I necessarily 100% agree with it, but is the yin and the yang. You got to understand the dance of the liquid motion of the battle between masculine and feminine, of those polarities, of that magnetism, which is creating the push-pull by which the engine of reality exists. So what happens is this: when we start to tear down and we start to make men and masculinity watered down into the territories of the feminine, and then the feminine watered down into the territories of the masculine, we are essentially tearing down the fabrics of our reality. And that's why you can see, and ultimately what I'm trying to do is help people be as happy as possible in this reality, in their lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So how do you do that? And it's my premise that you don't need to make people super alpha Chad masculine all the time. But what you do need to have is you need to have a baseline of masculinity, because men, like you said, are always going to cling to things that are going to drive them to be more masculine. Indeed. Hanging out with men, fighting, hunting, fishing, wrestling, chasing after girls, all this other stuff, right? That's essentially what men are going to go after. Like, I remember as a kid, what did I like to do? I like to play with sticks, and I like to whittle fucking wood. I like to go and get lost in the woods with my buddies and explore nature and get lost and try to find my way back, right? What do girls like to do? Well, they like to sit around and they like to knit and gossip and engage. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's nature. We need to appreciate that. We need to raise our societies up like that, you know?
No, I mean, I can understand. I appreciate it. The reason why, and it was a good question, is because, I mean, a classic example of what the guy's talking about, what I'm talking about, is the background behind me. I mean, this is the cathedral. This is the largest cathedral in the city of Trier. And every single society from Europe to the West to wherever else, Middle East, have all been based upon some sort of monotheic or, Abrahamic, we'll call it, religion or belief system. We don't have a model to where anything else has worked. And I someone, who was it that was talking to me about it? I can't remember who it was. I think it was actually Sam. I was talking to Sam, the guy that's in the video. Yeah. And I think it was Sam. I'm not sure. But he was telling me about, like, basically when there's a model that works for hundreds of years, there's no way it's going to, it's just understood that that's the way things are going to be. Like books, paper print books, despite like audiobooks, despite like, Kindles and whatnot, it's not something that's going to disappear. It's withstood the test of time. And I think the religious, aspect of society and societies being built upon them is one of those things.
That's why I tackle it from a spirituality standpoint rather than a monotheistic, because even then, I mean, if you look at Egyptians, the Egyptians ruled the world for thousands of years, and then their society collapsed and their religion passed. The same thing happened with Rome, where they had the pantheon of gods and all this other stuff with Zeus and all that other stuff. And then that turned into a monotheistic. I think like I talk about, everything evolves and there's nothing new under the sun. Everything goes through its own time, and we all go through ebbs and flows, and there's different stories that take over and all this other stuff. I think that we're on the age that is dawning now of spirituality, where everyone is going to have their own spiritual sovereignty to investigate their own direct connection to God. That's essential. So if I could put that down, that's essentially what my calling card is for what it is. No longer will we have a middleman between us, which I consider religion to be. Religion is the middleman of someone being able to have a direct connection to God. I think we're in an age now where people are going to have the sovereignty to explore that. I do that through meditation. I do that through my own rituals every once in a while, where I have my own direct connection, and I get my knowledge, my wisdom, and my direction from God through my own personal channel that way. And I think that's the best way to have. I think that's the best way to have it.
I'm smiling because one of the basic foundations of Islam is worshiping Allah alone without partners, equals, or intermediaries.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah. I listen, I love it. I absolutely 100% love that. Because that's what I've known to be truth. Yeah. Right? And that's why I said when I first came on here is I am a lover of wisdom, and I'm a lover of truth. And that's the only thing that I will only ever just exude the truth. And that's what I've come to realize is the truth. Is there is a direct way for you to be able to experience that.
Indeed. So we're coming up on 1 hour and 20 minutes. Have we covered everything? We got the book. We got when it's launching, how people can be contacted when it's launching, table of contents, all that type of stuff. Is there something else we missed? I mean, I don't know, man.
I think we're good, brother. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to show off my new book, though.
Hey, no problem. It's good to have you. I mean, we agree a lot. I mean, we're on Dude Party every Saturday, man. We just we're always pinging off. It's like, this dude knows what he's talking about, So it's good to have you on, man. We agree on a lot of stuff,
I like it.
And I think that just has to do with the military background in general. It's like, there's a lot of like just things there that, you learn, and you're like,
you've gone through a lot of stuff that I've gone through too. And it's kind of funny that we've come from the same. We've drawn the same conclusions having that, whether it be the military, whether it being masculine men, whether it be jujitsu, right? Like If there's one thing that I tell men to get into, it's that, because I mean, jujitsu has by far been one of my greatest teachers.
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is an amazing teacher. It teaches you a lot of different lessons that people don't understand. And it's probably any combat sport that spars, but jiu-jitsu there's a special kind of something about it. I don't know why. There's something. I mean, because I do boxing. I did Muay Thai, but jiu-jitsu, it really teaches you in a different way.
It's amazing. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I'll pop up some questions, but you guys, man, you got to hit me up with them donations like you do on other people, man.
So read the book. Read the book.
Community. Okay, you're gonna have to wait for the book, Jay. This is what it is. You ain't gonna get past that money, baby.
And because part 2 is gonna come out of how you build a society and a civilization based off of everything that I talk about. And there is an answer to it. Is it easy? No. But the reality is it is possible.
Yeah.
The thing is, too, there's going to be some level of sacrifice. If you want to belong to the society and make it work, you're going to have to all agree upon it.
Yeah.
You're going to all have to agree upon it, and you're going to have to believe in the structure of it. That's it.
I got one I want to answer right here, personally. Cool. So he's asking you. Never mind. Corey, please.
Sure. Do you believe that each person could have a different spiritual truth that ties into the truth of reality? Well, absolutely. So, okay, here's the thing. So if God is all energy and you are one specific frequency, and every time you connect to that frequency, so this is really testing your I guess your faith or your resolve in God or Allah, right? It's am I going to be led to the truth? So if you can do it as an individual, and and truth is truth, then you have to trust that connecting that way is going to also lead everybody else in that direction as well. But the thing is, and the problem that we humans have a tendency to do, is we try to control other people. And this is what I've come to realize through different types of religions, especially, I mean, because if you specifically look at how many levels and how many denominations are there of Christians, and none of them agree, right? None of them agree. They can't agree on anything. So it's like when someone sits there and they start espousing their level of truth and start their own church, then they start to separate from the main message. And it's like, you can't have that. So what's the better way? Well, the better way is to give it directly to people through their own individual means and their own individual practices. Like I said, I meditate daily. When I meditate, I come into contact with what I call my higher self, right? And that's the best version of me that's going to lead me in the best direction. My first book, Live Your Best Life in 30 Days, what I try to teach people is this. The more selfish you are as far as developing yourself, the better off society really would be. Why is that? Because if you try to be the best version of yourself and paint the best model of you, you don't have to worry about going and teaching other people to be that way. Everybody else is on their own program. It's like, I don't know if you've ever heard the adage, like there's a story about all these starfish that once washed up on the ocean. And you could take 2 approaches. You can try to hire and get as many people as possible to come in and pick up all the starfish all at once, but only a few people will show up, and it's like work and it's all this other stuff. Or every single day when you walk past, you can just pick up 1 starfish and throw it into the ocean. And it's like, that's what my belief is, like, because it'll get done. If everyone were in agreement that every single time I walk past a starfish and I just pick it up and I throw it in the ocean, it'll get done faster and it'll get done in a better means. And it'll create a better society. You know what I mean? Yeah. Doing research in Salif Islam, they provide you with the content. You have to take the action. Is that so? He's just agreeing with kind of what I'm saying here.
No, I'm a Salafi Muslim. He's a Salafi Muslim. Apparently, he's saying that, or he's just saying something that we would believe, basically.
Oh, okay.
Cool. I just didn't know Taj was like on Salafia, so I was just like, oh, okay, let me post that up there.
Yeah. So my belief system is just you do you and be the best version of you. Clean up all your messes, right? Affect and impact your own immediate environment. It's like what I talk about in Live Your Best Life in 30 Days. When you wake up, make your bed, clean your room, right? Clean up your environment around you. Make a good space, and that starts to trickle out everywhere you go. It turns into a spiral. Right. Yeah. Now that I can maintain and take care of my own living space, now I'm going to take care of my yard and I'm going to do all this other stuff. Now it's going to go out to my community. Now it's going to go out to my state. Now it's going to go out to my nation. Now it's going to go out to the world. Right. It's the compound effect. It's the ripple. Yeah, it's the butterfly effect. You know what I mean? Agree. So many people sit here and they try to tackle these. I tried to do this back when I was 30. My life was falling apart. My gym was closing down. I was going bankrupt. And I started to cling to these pet projects of like, oh my God, the fucking, we got to clean the water and we got to do all this other stuff. And it's like, dude, take care of your own shit first before you fucking try to change the world. You know what I'm saying? Yep. That's how you change the world, is by taking individual action and taking care of your own self, respecting your own self and respecting your own environments.
Yeah, we have a similar concept in Islam. I believe it was Abdullah ibn Masud. He was raised in the household of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And there was a time when there was a man, his name was Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. And Hajjaj ibn Yusuf used to kill the companions of the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him. Is a major like Islamic crime at that time. It was probably the biggest one at the time.
He used to kill, I missed that part. You said he
killed the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Okay. The companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, these are like some people that basically should have been untouchable. But Hajjaj ibn Yusuf was killing him. And Hajjaj basically told the people who they came to him, the people came to Abdullah ibn Masud and they wanted to fight against Hajjaj. And he told them, basically it's like, he's a reflection of you, that you can't have, paraphrasing some of the interpretations that I read, that basically, if you have a corrupt society on the individual level, there's no way they're going to have a righteous leader. And you're not going to have a righteous society with a corrupt leader. It doesn't happen. Agreed. It's just because, one comes from the other, so.
I would even go so far to say it comes from the opposite. We reflect what our leadership shows us. And that's, again, also why we're kind of doomed here in the West, because we've allowed corruption to become the status quo of all of our leaders. And there's no repercussion for it. Just like, I don't know if you've recently seen what's gone on, like Peter Schiff in the House here in the United States, bringing up the impeachment charges and lying about all these things. Like back in the day, that dude would have been tarred and feathered, thrown into whatever. Nancy Pelosi ripping up the SODU the other day, like just throwing tantrums. Like these people have no repercussions now, and they just get to continue doing all this bad stuff. Hillary Clinton, all this other crap, dude. Like, it's so bad. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But the thing is too, it also creates a swing of the pendulum. Where I think the direction that we are going to go into is we're going to go into a more ordered society here pretty soon, because that's just the way the pendulum is going to swing. Now, the thing is, though, what type of leader do we want? Do we want a tyrant who's going to take and abuse control and have it as an authoritarian dictatorship? Or do you want a just leader who can balance the difference between being firm and fair?
Thank you, Miss Abuamerican. She says, "May Allah send us hidayah." That means guidance, and that's all we can ask. Inshallah. Inshallah. My girls. Mashallah.
I like it.
Nice. That's one of my wives, actually. They're both watching.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so Corey, if people want to follow you, they want to keep track of you, get information from you, what else? How are they going to do it? What are they going to do?
Yeah, so here's the deal, guys. I'm sitting at about 860 subscribers right now on YouTube. I need to get those numbers up, honestly. Please do go to my YouTube channel, God Amongst Men, and hit the subscribe button. I talk about a whole plethora of things, obviously, how to become better men, how to focus on that stuff, game when it comes to women, keeping frame, seduction, all that other stuff, on top of just overall philosophy and how to really tailor your life to be the best version of you. Seriously. So it's pretty epic. Please do go there. I'm on Twitter at a God Amongst Men too. Obviously, Abu's tagged me on there, so you guys can just go and hit that. But mainly, just go to my YouTube channel. That's where I do everything.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, as Muslims, the Muslims are watching, it's going to be problematic. From an Islamic creed standpoint, it's really problematic following a guy that calls himself God Amongst Men. But hey, guys, if you could just filter through everything else in terms of the title, if you want to get that information he's talking about, you know where to go.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to make a single announcement before we close off here, and that is next Sunday on the 16th, I am on with Bint Layla, which is an anonymous name, and she's going to be on here talking about what it's like to be a woman who desires to be in a polygynous relationship. Make sure you don't miss it. Corey, thanks for coming on, my good man. I'm looking forward to that book, bro.
Yeah, dude. Thank you.
All right. We're out, guys.